Okay. So this will be the 8th lecture, and the first lecture was delivered by Professor Kulin Bihari Naik, and that started in the year 2014. And second lecture by Professor Aravind Mishra from TERI, and in 2020, in fact, we have changed the format. Earlier, we used to have these memorial lectures during the annual conference of the association. Usually that happens during the second weekend of February. But from this year, we have decided to do it online. And since we are doing it online, we can have this lecture on his on the birthday of the person, and also we started the lecture with the Professor Baidyanath Mishra Memorial Lecture, and then we also had Professor Aditya Mahanti Memorial Lecture, and then this is now KM Patnaik Memorial Lecture. So this is the third lecture we are going to have online. And now I will give you some information about Professor Khetra Mohan Patnaik. So he was born on May 10th, 1928, which was a Thursday, and his birthplace was Chhatrapur, Ganjam of Odisha, but his native place was Rengala near Delang, in fact near Jatni only, near Niger, where I am sitting now, very near to this place. He was born. And then his father was Bansidhar Patnaik and mother Harapriya Patnaik, and he breathed his last on May 8th, 1999, on a Saturday. So coming to the education of Professor Khetra Mohan Patnaik, he got his education from Onslow Institution, Chhatrapur, in 1943, and then his intermediate in science from Maharaja's College, Paralakhemandi, and that was coming under Utkal University then. And then he obtained his BA in economics with distinction in history from Maharaja's College, Paralakhemandi, Utkal University, 1947. MA Economics from Banaras Hindu University with first class passed. And for your information, he was the classmate of Janaki Vallabh Patnaik. Okay? And then he obtained his Masters of Arts from Stanford University, USA in 1958. And then he obtained his PhD. Of course, he could not complete his PhD abroad. Actually, he had to return because his father was not giving oil. So he obtained his PhD from Utkal University. And that was his education. Then coming to the professional career, he started his teaching career as a lecturer in economics in 1949 from Jaipur College, Koraput, and then he became lecturer in economics. He moved to Fakir Mohan College. Then he came back to Ravenshaw College in 1953, and then he worked with the director of public institution, and then he also became administrative officer from under secretary to the government of Odisha finance department with special assignment to look after the setting of Rourkela steel plant and Hirakud dam. And then he again came back to Ravenshaw College as reader in economics in 1963. He became professor of economics in 1970. And then he also moved to Gangadhar Meher College, Sambalpur. And then he also went to Berhampur University, the first professor in economics in Berhampur University. He worked during the period 1974 to 75. Then he acted as the principal of Ravenshaw College, Cuttack. He started his job as on April 30th, 1980. Then later on, he became director of public institutions, higher education, Odisha, which is probably the directorate of higher education now. From August 1981 to 1986, he retired from formal government service in 1986. He became vice chancellor for a very short period in Utkal University in 1986. He became member of planning board, government of Odisha, for the implementation of the 5-year plan programs in Odisha. And he was also appointed by government of Odisha to prepare the Odisha Education Code 1970. He became also a member of 3-member committee for additional resource generation for the state. And I don't know whether you all know this. In fact, I came to know this only yesterday when I was talking to his son, Dr. Sachidananda Patnaik. this dictionary was basically edited by him, and this is one of the largest selling dictionaries, and this was edited by Professor K.M. Patnaik. And his publications, I am not actually showing, here the number of publications here. In fact, his book on monetary economics was, in fact, I have also read his book when I was a student, and he had a number of publications in journals as well as in books. And for your information, he was instrumental in setting up the association. In fact, if you have watched the video on YouTube when we interacted with Professor Bhavani Prasad Das, so Professor K.M. Patnaik was instrumental in also the setting up of the Orissa Economic Association. And so today we have with us the speaker, Professor Jayaprakash Pradhan, and Professor Jayaprakash Pradhan is working as the chairperson and professor at the Center for Studies in Economics and Planning, School of Social Sciences, Central University of Gujarat. And prior to joining Central University of Gujarat, he has worked at various places like Central University Karnataka, Sardar Patel Institute of Economics and Social Research Ahmedabad, Institute for Studies in Industrial Development New Delhi, then GIDER Ahmedabad, and then RIS New Delhi, and then IAPA New Delhi. So he has worked at so many places. And he obtained his PhD from JNU in 2005, MPhil also from JNU in 2002, MA in Economics from University of Hyderabad in 99, BA from Laramha College, there is a typing error, College Sambalpur University, and he also belongs to Saintala in Balangir district of Odisha. And coming to his publication, this Google Scholar citation, is enough. I don't want to show his publications. He has a long list of publications. So from this citation, you can very well know how much publication he has done. In fact, one of the reasons, although I interacted with him for the first time now, because only a few days ago I talked to him, but I knew him, as a serious researcher who publishes so many papers and in very good journals. And at a very young age, he has published so many articles in very reputed journals. He has also edited so many special issues of different journals in his field. And other than his academic works, he has also written so many poems in Odia and English. Then he has done a documentary. So when I was going through all this, his CV, it is very impressive CV, you can see. So the recent one is this book, Asanta Ekanta, published in 2020. That is a collection of the Odia poems, and also the documentary on Balco agitation, a brief history that you all can watch on the YouTube. So with this, I welcome Professor Jayaprakash Pradhan to this meeting, and we are really indebted to him for accepting our invitation in a very short time. And then, you must be also aware that he has sent his full paper before the lecture, and I have also sent you the link of the paper. That paper is available on the website of Orissa Economic Association. You can download that paper and read the full paper. So with this, I welcome Professor Jayaprakash Pradhan. But before I move on to inviting him to deliver the lecture, I will invite the President of Orissa Economic Association, Professor Suryanarayan Tripathi, to welcome to have his introductory remarks. Although Professor Suryanarayan Tripathi is not keeping well, so he will briefly basically welcome all of us, and then we may go and take rest. So now it's over to Professor Suryanarayan Tripathi.
Welcome all of you to this eventful memorial lecture on Professor K.M. Patnaik. And I'm really delighted to know that Professor Jayaprakash Pradhan has agreed to deliver the talk. We know Professor Pramod Patnaik was a stalwart, great economist in Odisha. He has a reputation throughout India, even abroad. During that period, D.C. Misra, Professor Sadashiv Misra, and K.M. Patnaik, these three were well known internationally for the research and other publications. When I was a student in the year 1976 to 78, there was a paper known as essay, writing 50 marks on a particular topic on inflation, its causes, or growth and development of Indian economy, such issues. Professor Bhatnagar used to receive that paper, and people say that he was very uh, extremely rigid and may not award marks. But actually, what happened? I had a friend, Stanley David. David wrote a paper, got 48 out of 50. Whereas I have a friend, Bhagavad Patra, who got less than 45 in higher statics, the alternative paper. So I know that Professor K. Patnaik is very judicious, and once he was aware that the candidate is very much clear in conceptual understanding of the topic, he was giving marks. And under his guidance, many people were awarded PhD, and also Indian Economic Service and other services were given under Utkal University, the Revansa, and was very popular and very prominent economist. I am very much delighted that we are going to have his memorial lecture today, and our eminent professor Jayaprakash Pradhan from Central University, Ahmedabad, is going to deliver the talk on the drivers of SME formation in Indian states, and I hope the paper will be tribute a great mark of respect to Professor K.M. Patnaik. K.M. Patnaik has left immortal footprints in the sense of time. His number of scholars, students he has produced, Revansa University, and particularly state of Odisha, will remember for years to come for his great scholarship, guidance, and I am happy, and I request Jayaprakash to present his paper. Amarendra has already given introduction about K.M. Patnaik and also Professor Jayaprakash very briefly, and I am happy that you all are cooperating and very much anxious to listen to his talk. Thank you very much. Request to Jayaprakash kindly present his presentation.
Okay, so thank you, sir. Before I invite Professor Jayaprakash Pradhan, I would invite Dr. Sachidanand Patnaik, the son of Professor K.M. Patnaik. In fact, Dr. Sachidanand Patnaik worked as general manager at Raurkela Steel Plant, and he's also a life member of the association. So, Dr. Sachidanand Patnaik will speak a few words about Professor K.M. Patnaik. Sir, it's over to you.
Namaskar. Good afternoon. Are you able to hear me? Hello?
Yes, yes.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, we can hear you. Yes, sir.
I have nothing to speak except expressing my deep sense of gratitude to Odisha Economic Association, its president, especially Professor Amarendra Das, and also to Professor Jayaprakash Pradhan, who has kindly agreed to deliver this memorial lecture. I remember in the year I was a member of this association since 1978 when I was a lecturer in economics. Then again I joined back in 2013, and that year at Niger, the Odisha Economic Conference was held at Institute of Physics campus where Niger was located, and a book on my father, the mentor, the maestro, was released by Professor, if I remember, Chanda. He was the president of the SARC University. And since then, there I was, somebody suggested me, why don't you have a memorial lecture in memory of your father? I readily agreed. 2014, the first memorial lecture was delivered by Dr. Pulin Naik, then director Delhi School and member Prime Minister Economic Advisory Council at Rimuli College. Since then, this lecture has been going on, and it was part of the Odisha Economic Association annual conference. This year, Professor Amarendra Das suggested that they should have it on the birthday of my father. I agreed. I am very happy, thankful, grateful to all of you. I bow down my head before you that you have all assembled here on a very important day for me, that is my father's birthday, and I have sent invitation to many of my friends, colleagues who have been students of my father in Revansa College and at different places, GM College, Berhampur University, and throughout the nation and outside the nation. They are also, I found some of the faces here. Mr. J.K. Das, he was a product of JNU, student of Revansa College, and he was a GM Bank of Baroda. He is also participating. I thank all of you for giving me the opportunity to speak some words. And now I will request Professor Amarendra Das to go ahead with this lecture program. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. Now I would invite Professor Jaiprakash Pradhan to deliver his lecture on drivers of SME formation in Indian states, the empirics. Now I welcome Professor Jaiprakash Pradhan to Orissa Economic Association and deliver his lecture. Over to you.
Thank you. I will take a minute to share the slide. Good afternoon to you all, distinguished colleagues, friends, and ladies and gentlemen. It is a great honor and a privilege to be here with you all, and on this important occasion to deliver the memorial lecture in honor of Professor K.M. Patnaik. It is personally a privilege for me because being a teacher, I am delivering a lecture in the memory of another great teacher of the state. So I'm grateful for this opportunity to Orissa Economic Association, and I'm especially thankful to all the office bearer of Orissa Economic Association, Professor Suryanarayan Tripathi ji, Dr. Amarendra Das ji, and Professor Das ji for this opportunity. As you know that we are going through pandemic crisis, and of course the topic that I'm talking to you is not related to that. But I always thought the issue of the small and medium farms or the enterprises are core to the issue of employment, livelihood, and the economic security of large section of society. So in that context, I do feel that the topic of the SME formation in Indian states would be of much interest to a greater number of people concerned with the issue of poverty and employment. It goes without emphasizing, that development and promotion of SME sector, small and medium enterprise sector, has been an important policy area for any countries, whether it's developed. The point I was making was that the small and medium enterprise, they tends to play a very significant role as far as economic life of the nations are concerned. Whether you talk about high income countries or whether you talk about even low income countries, the GDP share of MSME is well above 60% or 55%, and employment share is well above 70%. So that's the point I was making. The second point I made is that in the case of India too, we can observe the MSME account for nearly about 32% of gross domestic product in the economy, and about 48% of total exports actually is accounted by the MSME, and their employment generation by the MSME sector, particularly the non-agricultural MSME, it stood at 11 crores the employment opportunity. So it is a massive numbers as far as small and medium enterprise are concerned. The second point I was making is that it is not enough for the policy to only look at the existing MSME sector. What is important is also to look at how many new SMEs are coming and they are joining the existing stream of production activities or not. Because that is two component. If you want to promote the SME sector, need to ensure that there is a continuous flow of new SMEs. They are joining in the economic life of the nation. That is most critical equally. The reasons, as I said, new SMEs, they comes with new product, they comes with new varieties of technologies, they comes with new competitive pressures to the economy, and it is important for that pressure to continue. Similarly, the SME have a particular characteristics of spatially diversified locations. They are more scattered across the space than the large enterprises. As a result, SMEs, they play a role in reducing the developmental disparities among regions. So that also is important, especially if you want to concentrate on SME sector. However, despite the importance of SMEs, the formation of SME, the entry of the SME, you see that it is an area which has been highly under-researched, and this is especially true if you are talking about the formation of new SMEs among Indian states. So, given this above backdrop, the present study is motivated to look at the regional dimensions of entry of new SMEs. Our focus should be from those SMEs who were started from 1989, started from 1979 to 80, and they are still surviving up to 2006 and 7. That is the period that we will be looking at. The objective here is to look at and estimate the entry rate of new firms across the Indian states over such a long period of time, 1980 to 2007, and try to see which regions, which states have done well in terms of SME formation and why. If there are disparities in the formation rate of new SMEs across the Indian states, the issue comes to the question is why is that certain states, they tends to possess higher rate of SME formation than another state, So that issue that we'll be looking at. Here, the study will be specifically examining the role of locational factors like agglomeration, the availability of skill, local market, nature of demand, infrastructure, etc. Now, in the full paper, if you look at, we talked about the data sources, how we have estimated, all details are there. I will advise you kindly look at the full paper. In the meantime, what I am doing is that I am summarizing the key findings that we have obtained by conducting this particular study. One distinctive characteristics of SME formation one can see in India is that during 1980s up to 2002 and 4, so that is the period where what we can see is that there is a rising tendency of establishing SME entrepreneurship in India, and it is actually cutting across the regions and the states. And if you particularly to quote the statistics, if you look at the number of new SMEs formed, the number actually increased from just about 97,000 in the first half of 1980s to about 4,23,000 above SMEs during 2000 to 2004. So rapid figure has been very quite rapid. And after, especially after 2003-4, you can see that the absolute number of SME formation in India has declined. So also the entry rate of SME formation. Now here, what do you mean by entry rate? The entry rate of SME we are defining as the number of newly formed SMEs per 1 million labor force. The idea is that out of this many working age individuals, some individuals, they have chosen the path of entrepreneurship. Okay, they didn't opted for to be an employee, but they wanted to be starting their own path of employment. So that is the self-employment mode, you can say. And that is the definition that you have taken. That is the labor market approach to estimate the entry rate of SMEs. So how many SMEs per 1 million labor force were formed? That is the entry rate of measurement that we are doing. Now, so if you look at the different periodic segregation that we have done, we have seen that the increase in the number of new SMEs, it is widespread across the Indian regions. There are geographically six Indian regions: Central India, East India, North India, Northeast India, South India, and the West India. So across all these six Indian regions, we see that successive 4-year periods that we have started with 1980-84 onwards, we'll see that successively the number of SMEs has grown rapidly, okay, until up to 2000-2004. But after 2000-2004, 2005 and 7, we have seen that there is a drastic decline in the number of new SMEs formed. This is true for even the entry rate of new SMEs, because consistently the number of SMEs formed per 1 million working age populations, which was 49 SMEs during 1980-84, it increased to 141 SMEs during 2000-2004, and then again 2005 and 7, we have seen that the average rate of new SME formation actually fallen to 82 firms. So it indicates that truly the formation of Indian SMEs, the massive expansion took place during especially in 1985-89 to 1990-94. That is the actually boom period in the formation of SMEs across in the India and across the Indian regions. And especially if you really look at this 2005-7 periods, except the Central India, which you can see that whose curve is rising, rest of the regions, they have seen a decline the formation rate of SMEs, and the decline was mostly for the South India. South India was the star. It's actually if you look at 1980s and 90s period, South India emerged as a hotbed of small and medium enterprises formation. It is a massive rate of entry of SMEs, but 2005 and 7, you see that rate actually fallen from 241 SMEs per 1 million working populations to about 106 enterprise per 1 million population. So that reduction has taken place. Even in the case of Western regions, the reductions we can see. So almost every region except Central India, the rate of formation of new SMEs has fallen. So one pattern we have seen, the absolute value of the number of SMEs and the entry rate of SMEs. So it actually has gone up across the board, across the regions in India in 1980s, 1990s, even I think the early 2000s period. But later on, from 2005-7, there is a decline. So this is reflected also if you estimate the growth rate of number of new SMEs and the growth rate of entry of the new SMEs. So both, if you see that the same story emerging. So what it indicates is that it might be possible when the Indian economy got opened up in 1990s. That time you see that there is just still scope for a large number of new SMEs to be formed. The opportunity was higher, but as the market got consolidated because of liberalization measures, and when the large firms probably when they have the grown and they captured the larger chunk of the market in across spectrum of products, you will see that the opportunity for small firms might be reducing. That could be the one reason. The other reason is that as the Indian economy has actually ascended in terms of growth path, more and more higher level of growth during this period, you will see that the growth opportunities might have created employment opportunities, which number of working individuals and working as individuals might have opted for jobs rather than starting their own enterprise or choosing the path of entrepreneurship. So that probability, it can explain to that extent. In addition to the trend of the SME formation, one can look at the pattern of SME formation across the region, the regional pattern. If you look at the regional pattern, one can see that it is the three regions in India, West India, South India, and the North India, who continue to be contributing the maximum chunk of new SME form in India. I think in 1980-84, the share of only three this region was 76%. And the share of top three regions went above 82% during 1985 to 2004. So it only indicates that the SME formations, the share, the number of SME, shares, you will see that it got more and more concentrated as as you are actually coming near to the 1990s and apart. And already I indicated to you that South India has emerged as a very hotbed of entrepreneurship with spectacular share of SME formation in India. However, that we have seen from 2005 and 7, even South India's share actually has fallen to about 30%. So that actually trend we can see. If you look at the analysis at the Indian states, of which we have 35 Indian states data, including Indian territories, we can see that just top 15 states, they accounted for the largest chunk of number of new SMEs formed, for each of the period from 1980 onwards. You can see the maximum chunk is contributed by these top 15 states out of 35 Indian states. And what is the share? The share of the top 15 states stood more than 90%. And it indicates that the maximum, the magnitude of special concentration in the emergence of new SMEs in India. If you consider the sub-period 2000 to 2004, the largest 5 states contributing SME formation in India were Tamil Nadu and Uttar Pradesh. Each contributed more than 15% share in the number of SME formed. And then the other leading 3 states are Gujarat, Karnataka, and Kerala. Each contributed more than 10% share. So together, these top 5 states, they accounted for about 64% share of total number of SME formation in India during 2000-2004. All these statistics, they are only indicating you is that, okay, yes, 1980s and 90s have seen the number of formation of Indian SMEs has grown, but within that, there is a strong regional concentration has emerged. It is the few regions, 3 regions, and within the Indian state, it is the few Indian states who are accounting for disproportionate share in the number of new SMEs formed. So a concentrated regional pattern is a very distinctive feature of SME formation in India. And regions can be varied. If you look at Tamil Nadu, we know that it is a very industrial friendly state. The policies are very industry promoting. It has a good infrastructure and also good skilled labor force availability. So these kind of sectors might be contributing for the larger share of Tamil Nadu. Similarly, Uttar Pradesh share could be driven by inexpensive labor force and maybe the proximity to Delhi. So that kind of reasons one can see whether that will be important. The state of Gujarat, you all know, it has a good infrastructure, it has a port, all power transportation network is good. So obviously, the state is an attractive state for entrepreneurship in India. So so specific regions you can see, and one can understand. One important the findings from here is that the emergence of new SMEs in India is highly spatially concentrated. Okay, that is the number-wise we have got the concentrated pattern. Now, if you consider the entry rate of new SMEs by regions and by the state, we also see that the minimum and the maximum value in that entry rate, whether you consider the regions or whether you consider the Indian states that gone up. If you consider 1980-84, you will see that the West India had highest entry rate of 73 firms, okay, and the lowest entry rate of SME was 21 firm in Northeast India. So the range, which is the difference between maximum value and the minimum value, for the Indian regions was actually 52 firms. Subsequently, you see that the value of the range increased for other period. It increased to 60 firms in 1985-89, and it went up to as high as 195 firms during 95-99. So it only indicates that disparity in the entry rate of SMEs also has widened. the spatial disparities. And if you look at the top 15 Indian states and disparity in their entry rate of SMEs, one can see that the same story is emerging. The highest in the range actually among these 15 Indian top states, it is actually, one can see that it was 188 farms in 188 farms in the case of Punjab to 19 farms in case of Uttar Pradesh during 1980-84. So the range was 169 farms during the early 1980s. Now this range of entry rates among Indian states now is considerably increased. It increased up to 477 farms during 95-99. And then, of course, during 2005 and 7, the range has fallen to 324 farms. What this indicates, this the entry rate of new SMEs among the regions, it indicates that Indian states and the regions have seen increasing disparity in the entry rate of new SMEs into Indian states. Overall, that is the story. We see that the regional heterogeneity is a very important feature that characterizes SME formation in India. So I think that's the findings that you will come across. Yes, we understand that there are few states or the regions which account for maximum chunk of SMEs formation in India, and also those regions tends to have higher rate of new SME formation than other Indian states. So what drives this disparity? What drives the this high level of spatial disparity in the entry rate of SMEs across Indian states? Now, if you refers to our full paper, we based on the review of literature, based on the theories concerning the formation of SMEs from regional perspective, we built a conceptual framework where we related the regional variation in formation of new forms, the rate of regional, the rate of formation of new forms, to a set of important spatial factors that might be explaining. And one set of factors was regional market conditions. It basically talks about the market size, sophistication of the demand in that particular state, and the growth of the regional market. So that is one set of the factors. Another important set of factors indicated by the theoretical literature is the regional, technological, and skill conditions. Okay, if we can expect that then a state with higher technological knowledge might be, giving conditions for higher rate of new SME formation in that particular state. So similarly, we talked about, we can identify, the theory also talks about the regional policy frameworks is important for SME formations, and it particularly the competition policy, the industrial policy, the policy of investment promotion pursued by different states. They all vary, and the state who can be very industry promoting and who are actually looking at and promoting the infrastructure particularly needed by the industrial sectors might have higher rate of SME formations. Apart from that, we specifically look at also the role of regional physical infrastructure, the supply of power, transportation, network, telecommunication, etc. So this the critical, because industrialization depends upon this critical physical factors availability. And we also, the theory also tells you that the basic infrastructure might play a role in the regional variation of entry rate of new firms. And other factors that could be important also in the case of India was access to finance, urban areas representing or measuring the agglomeration economies, and inward FDI. And most importantly here, we also talked about what is known as the entrepreneurial culture of the state, because every state, every society tends to view entrepreneurship differently. So all these factors, we found to be important as far as theories are concerned. So based on that, we formulated our empirical model. And in the model, you can see that the entry rate of the new SMEs is the dependent variable. As already I've indicated you, the entry rate is measured by number of new SMEs formed per 1 lakh working age populations. Then the demand conditions, the domestic is measured by state, net state domestic product. Then growth and the per capita income. These are all demand conditions. Regional technology are measured by basically the patent stock, the cumulative patent applications from Indian states. That is what we have employed. And also we have looked at the technological specialization of manufacturing sector of the state. It is basically measured as the share of technology intensive sectors in total manufacturing value added. Particularly the technology intensive sectors are classified as per the OECD classification. It includes chemical, pharmaceutical, transport, electrical machinery, non-electrical machinery, and so forth. Okay, so that's how I think 2 variables we have used. Then we also looked at special agglomeration factor. It is measured as the total number of organized sector factories per 1,000 square kilometer of area of Indian state. So basically, it actually measures the density of the farms, where the visualization is that if there are if agglomeration advantages are there, and if SMEs are drawn by that, then these factors would be important. Similarly, town is taken as a center of agglomeration activities. In addition to that, already I have indicated you, the infrastructural factor plays a major important role. Here we consider the skill, availability of power, land transport, and telecommunication infrastructure, particularly measured by teledensity. Then we talked about state finance availability. We talk about entrepreneurial culture. I must clarify you, how do we measure entrepreneurial culture? So that is a very fundamental issues. And what we did is that we actually cumulated the suppose starting year is 1991. So from 1901 up to 1989, how many SMEs were formed in that particular state as a percentage of, or as a per 1 million working age populations. So that is our measurement. That means the cumulative number of SMEs per 1 million working age populations of a particular that year, last year, is taken as a measurement of regional entrepreneurial culture. The state with higher existence of entrepreneur or SMEs were taken to be highly entrepreneurial in that sense. Then we talked about also the FDI, because of argument that SME tends to negatively impact the SMEs, small and medium farms. They might steal the market from SMEs. They may put undue competitive force on the SME sector, and all arguments are there. So we have taken even the inward FDI as an independent variable. So I'm coming to these are data sources that you can see. All our data, the dependent variable is estimated from unit level India census data, MSME census data. There is a unit level information, so we have to call it out. We have followed the definition of MSME to be as per the MSMED Act 2006. So any manufacturing unit that has invested, the investment in plant and machinery, if it is up to rupee 100 million, in case of manufacturing, we say it is a it is actually an SME. Similarly, up to 50 million in case of services sector, as taken as the constitutes as the SME form. Okay, and these are all different sources, government sources. We have collected the data on independent variable. Then we chose our method of estimation. How do you estimate? Because it is a panel data, we tested the methods, and we found that the fixed effect in the method of estimation is ideal, because it takes care of the specific the heterogeneity which lies with the different Indian states, and those heterogeneity might not be time invariant. Okay, so we are able to take that heterogeneity into consideration through the fixed effect. We tested whether first we tested whether the pooled OLS is better vis-a-vis the random effect model of Pernell-Latta estimation. And then we tested whether the random effect is better or the fixed effect is better. So based on that analysis, we have selected, as far as statistical test is concerned, the fixed effect estimations. I'm coming to the main findings of our empirical analysis. Here I'm summarizing the result to you, and the detailed results will be, you can see in the full paper. The first set of factors which we consider could be important for explaining interstate variation in SME rate was the market-related factors. And you can see that the net state domestic product, SDP, it tends to have a positive sign across the estimations. And keep in mind, when we did the estimation, we estimated for all the sectors, the entry rate by Indian states, then entry rate of SMEs in the primary sector, then we estimated it by the tertiary sector, then the manufacturing sector. So it is the aggregate estimation for all the sectors, then disaggregated by the primary sector, tertiary sector, the manufacturing. Within the manufacturing, we segregated the manufacturing sample into high technology, medium technology, and low technology manufacturing. So so this many set of estimations we have conducted across the Indian states. And one can see here is that state domestic product, which are used to represent the absolute size of the market, tends to have a positive sign across the estimations, and except two estimations, this variable turn out to be statistically significantly different from zero. It suggests that the Indian state possessing larger absolute size of the local market, it tends to experience higher entry rate. Okay? So the absolute market size of the market, provides opportunities for the formation of new small and medium enterprises. So that, I think that's the important finding we found. So what would be the implications for such a finding? It indicates that the state whose market size is small, GDP size is small, they obviously have a market disadvantage effect, right? So so such state, if their GDP size is small, the local market size is small, so they needs to target the SME sector, the existing SME sector, by provisioning of marketing support. If they are providing marketing support to the SMEs, their local SMEs, because they're suffering from constraint of small size of local market, and if they're providing marketing support so that these SMEs can access the national market, not only the state market but also neighboring state markets. So I think that will play a major important role for promoting SME in those states whose market size is small. Okay, that I think one implications we can see. The second important market indicator variable we used is the growth rate. But generally speaking, higher growth will give better opportunities for the new firms to come in. Okay, so that's the analysis. However, we see that the growth rate of that is SDPZ, that's the second variable. So growth rate of the market, local market, it tends to have a negative sign throughout. And for majority estimation, it is not different from zero. Okay, the effect is, but especially in the case of tertiary sector and the high technology manufacturing sector tends to be different from zero. So that implies that there is a negative effect, especially on tertiary sector and manufacturing sector, high technology sectors are concerned. How do you interpret the result? Then we thought there are two important factors might be leading to this kind of results. One is that the growth in the post-liberalization period in India, the growth is actually more appropriated by the existing SMEs as well as the large large-sized enterprises. So growth might be more appropriated by them. So that one explanation could be that. Then the second will be that because India has seen a high growth, this period, the growth rate actually increased. So any opportunity, the market opportunity, especially employment opportunity, has gone up, and might be that the working age populations, the individuals, might have chosen the jobs over the entrepreneurship. If the employment opportunities are there with high growth, that the individuals, who they might be choosing taking a job, it is the salary is good enough, then they might be choosing that. Okay, so that might also be contributing to a not so significant impact of growth rate or negative growth rate. I think these are two regions we can think of growth not playing any role in the SME sectors. Okay, then the per capita GSDP. The per capita GSDP of the state, we used it to as a measurement of sophisticated of local demand. Okay, so when the per capita GDP is higher in a state, we are saying that the local demand is more sophisticated. More sophisticated means local demand, consumer demand might be more brand or and differentiated product, and more demand will be for differentiated goods and services. But we know that the SME sector particularly, they operate and provide standardized products, simple standardized products. So when per capita income indicates growing sophistication of local demand in particular state, that opportunity for SME sector might be less, because SME sector essentially they are dealing with standardized simple product, not the sophisticated product. So when per capita income goes up, the opportunity for growth might be higher for large sized enterprises than the SME, and that might explain the strongly negative sign coefficient of per capita GSDP on the formation rate of SMEs. So state with highly sophisticated local demand might see a lower rate of SME formations. I think this is how I think we thought of explaining and interpreting the results. Now let us move into, we understand that as far as market variable are concerned, it is a mixed finding. Absolute size for the market is important for a higher rate of SME formation, but sophistication of demand is not. Sophistication of demand will always favor a large enterprises, and it might not be in fact it will be a discouraging factor for the formation of new SMEs. Now let's move into technology related factor. There are two factors variable we employed. One is the patent stock across the Indian states as an independent variable representing the technological knowledge base of the state, and other is the technological specialization of manufacturing sector. Now as far as patent is concerned, we see that it has it has a different mixed sign, positive sign for 3 and negative sign for another 3. I think that's what you can see. And none of the coefficient of the patent stock has any significance. They didn't reach to the level of statistical significance. So we see that technological knowledge represented by patent stock, they hardly have any any very strong relations with they do not have any relations, or you can say they're very minimal undetectable relations with the formation of new SMEs. How do we interpret this result? See, one thing you should realize is that the patent stock, using patent stock to measure technological stock of the state has its own limitations. So number one factor is that the patent are essentially an activities undertaken by the large sized enterprises, and also those enterprises are coming from organized sector. Here, what is the expectation that we had? We had expectation is that state with higher technological knowledge might generate more knowledge spillovers, because incumbent firms may not be appropriating the entire advantage of technological knowledge, and some advantage might also spill over to the firm who are the new firms who want to enter. But here what is happening is because the way we are measuring the patent stock as a measurement of regional technological stock, there is a limitations in saying is that because small firms, small and medium firms, and majority of them when they are operating in informal sector, they might gain very little from patent taken by the organized sector farms. So possible explanation is that, okay, and also it explains why the patent stock is not, it did not come out to be a significant factor. Maybe if one can look at the alternative measurement, like maybe the R&D investment, cumulative investment from 1980s would have been better measure. But of course, that statistics is very difficult to collect from 1980s. That's we could not do that. So I think that limitations we have to keep in mind. Among the technology variable, the other one, the specialization, the technological specialization, that is the share of high technology manufacturing activities within the manufacturing sector, you see that it has a consistently positive sign and also significant for majority of estimations. What it tells you is that, indicates you is that state with specialization in higher technological activity within the manufacturing, they tends to witness higher level of entry of new SMEs. Okay, so higher is the technological specialization of the manufacturing of the state, higher is the entry rate of SMEs. So it actually, if you can look at what is happening here, is the story is that when a state promotes technology intensive sectors in the manufacturing, that sector not only leads to higher productivity growth, higher output, and also not only witness higher demand. As income increases, demand for knowledge intensive product goes up. We all know. So higher demand. And that sector, when it is expanding, not only contributing directly to that particular sector, also might be generating knowledge spillovers to so that new entrepreneurs can be set up in that particular state. So it's very, very important for the state to adopt policies of promoting technology intensive industries in the manufacturing. If you let alone, if you leave the market forces and say that let whatever best on our competitive advantage, if the manufacturing should grow, then you may end up in only labor intensive product, and that may not be enough for sustaining or stimulating the growth of SME sector by bringing in new SMEs. So it is very important to realize that state with high technology intensive specialization in manufacturing tends to have high growth rate of SMEs. So it is important lessons for even state level policy making. Now let us move into the agglomeration related factor. We have, there are two measurements we have used. We have used the density of organized sector farms, special density across Indian states, and the towns. Both these variables, they had positive signs largely, but they didn't turn out to be significant. What it's telling you is that the agglomeration related factor, as far as entry of SMEs are concerned in Indian states, are not very, they play a very very small role, a small role to be detected in the process. Why is it there so? Why is it? It might be the causes. Now while we're looking at it, when we ponder about the results, we feel that you should keep in mind, if you analyze both the large farm and the small farms, the large farms, they tends to have a specially concentrated pattern of locations, whereas the small farm, they specially have a dispersed locations. Okay, so because of that, it could be that because of that pattern of specialization, that's the reason why you argue that SMEs tends to be specially more diverse. They are important for building or bringing in regional balance in terms of development. So that is the argument you provide. It could be that because of that, and also if you look at the fourth census result of MSME, you will see that nearly, I think 40 to 45% of SMEs, they are all located in rural areas. Okay, so maybe that agglomeration related factor, or particularly the way we have measured it, might not be a so important factor for the formation of new farms in particular state. So we didn't find much the implications to offer here, but we still feel that if you are measuring clusters, number of clusters in particular state, cluster means it is the farm who are producing the same product and they are located in a proximate area. That might be a better indicator, but we didn't had any measurement of that variable. So I think that limitations should be kept in mind. A very important finding of this empirical exercise is about the role of skill. Availability of skill. Skill is basically, we have taken it as the higher educational enrollment ratio in the universities, deemed universities, national institution, colleges, science, general, and also polytechnics. All indicate, this thing we have taken. And if one can see that the availability of skill per enterprises, if you look at, it had a negative sign throughout all the estimations, and significant also for majority one. What it tells you is that state where the availability of skill, state possessing higher skill endowment, then obviously there is a good possibility for higher rate of SME formation. Partly, many of the skilled manpower might be turning themselves the entrepreneur, and also whenever a new enterprise is formed, they will draw upon the skill set of the particular state. So the skill factor is very important, and implication is that if you really want to promote SME sector, you also need to promote or establish more number of higher educational institutions and ensure that the skill factor goes up in particular state. I think that's what the implications it will come. Now we are moving on to infrastructure related variables. In the infrastructure related variables, we found mixed findings. We find that the availability of power, it is basically the power generation per per lakh populations. The way we have measured it, it is actually didn't come out to be significant. Okay. However, the other the other variables, state transport network, that includes the road plus railway route, the density of it, the state road transport network density, it came out to be significantly positive throughout and attained significant for all the sectors estimation for tertiary sector, total manufacturing, and within total manufacturing, low technology sector. So what it tells you is that yes, the road transportation is critical sector. State with better road connectivity or transport connectivity, they are likely to have higher rate of entry of SMEs, and it is important for Indian states to even look at this particular the factors. Now, if you look at the STI with the state telecommunication infrastructure measured by teledensity, we found it had a negative sign throughout, and important for total manufacturing and all sectors together. Within total manufacturing, it is the low technology sector. So either the teledensity do not have a role to play in primary or primary or tertiary sector, or wherever they are playing, they will have a negative indications. So what it implies, while looking at the result and trying to interpret the result, we found that the literature indicate that small and medium firms tends to have very, very low rate of adoption of new technology, particularly the ICT, information and communication technologies. Now, if that is happening, as on the other hand, it's the large size enterprise who are very proactive and they go for investment into ICT, adoption in ICT, and I think that might be playing a role. It might be that state with higher telecommunications infrastructure, because SMEs are not adopting or they are still yet to realize the advantage of ICT into their business model, it might not be playing the important role in the formation of SME. I think that's what we could interpret. Another unexpected result that we found, contrary to our hypothesis, is the finance, role of the finance. Finance is measured by lending by the commercial banks, credit lending by them, and per capita credit availability. If you look at the role SFN, we found it has throughout a negative sign and strongly significant except the primary sector. So strongly significant. So how do we explain that result? Otherwise, you feel that state where per capita availability of commercial institutional finance is higher, we expect more SME to be formed. Then while looking into the literature, we realized that the SME, the even fourth census, MSME census, they indicate that just about 10% of SMEs had access institutional finance. So 90% are not into the institutional finance, number one. Number second, we also realized and we found that the institutional sector, they have a bias especially while they are lending to the SME sector. But SME sector, one important reason for their sickness is not able to manage the working capital, what they need. And bank has its own, rigidities and bias and all kind of, restrictions as far as, small and medium firms are concerned. And maybe because that explained, it's not that state with higher per capita lending by commercial bank indicates higher allocation for SME sector. It's not happening. Even when I was looking at, Professor Tara Nair and Keshav Das paper, which came in APW, it just indicates that we have seen, the slowing down of the credit, rate, particularly the manufacturing sectors by the institutional credit. So it might indicate that the large availability of credit has gone into the large sized enterprises, not to the SME sector. Plus, SME sector themselves are shying away availing finance from the organized sector, because this institutional credit is very difficult for them to get because of our kind of bureaucratic hurdles and cumbersome process and requirements that this institutional sector has it. So that is the reason why you see that state, even if they have a less per capita availability of institutional finance, tends to have a high rate of SME formations. I think that is how we have interpreted the results. The funding on FDI, foreign direct investment, we found it had a negative sign majoritarily, but not so significant. Our hypothesis, our inference is that yes, foreign investment firms come into a particular state, but their operation is confined to the organized sector, and plus this FDI firm, foreign affiliates, they are serving a different set of customers than what SME sector are serving with their standardized product. We all know foreign firms, they come with differentiated product because they have brand advantage, capital, etc. And their target is, sure sort, a different level of customers with different product categories than the SME sector. So because of that, we found SME, even if, people have argued that FDI might impact SME, pretty badly, but as far as entry of new SME is concerned, we found that FDI, has not played, any important role as far as SME rates of SMEs are concerned. Lastly, the most important, another finding of this study is that state with higher entrepreneurial culture tends to have high rate of SME formations. The entrepreneurial culture variables, when you look at it, is throughout significant and very, very strongly significant across all the estimations. It indicates that the state which has been able to promote entrepreneurial culture in the past, it tends to see an increasing number of its working age population taking up entrepreneurship. I think these factors suggest you that and it explains a large extent. It explains very significantly why certain states have higher rates of SME formation than other states. I think these are major findings, and I told you. I think this is all summary. You already know that I can summarize very quickly. The number as well as entry rate of new SMEs, it has grown, especially in 1980s and early 2000, but then successively it actually slows down. Then we have seen that there is a especially there is a highly concentration, high concentration, special concentration can be seen as far as new SMEs is informed, and also high disparity in entry rate of SMEs we have seen. Concentration in the share of SME formation by Indian state has gone up, and disparity in terms of entry rate also has gone up. I think that's the findings we have seen. And while the empirical results clearly indicates you that the market characteristics, the availability of skill, the infrastructure, particularly the road, particularly the finance, the way you are measuring it, and the entrepreneurship culture of the states are important characteristics or that determined the entry of new SMEs. Now, obviously, if you look at the study offered a number of policy implications, we say that if you really want to promote SMEs in your own state, don't forget you must put emphasis on higher education, particularly to enhance your supply of skilled labor force, you must look at building good road networks and particularly road and railway networks. It will definitely help the formation of new SMEs. And also you must intervene in your manufacturing process and see that your manufacturing sector is specializing more in technology intensive activities. And already, some of you might be knowing, entrepreneurship is not inborn. It is cultural outcome, and it can be created. And Odisha is known for it. And once upon a time, Odisha entrepreneurs, they used to trade with, all, Southeast Asian countries, and we all know. But it declined. So the entrepreneurship is an activity which can be culture, which can be nurtured by the state. And a state like Gujarat have, are examples in that. So it is very important if state want to promote the formation of new SMEs, they also have to take measures to promote entrepreneurial culture of the states. And especially on credit issue, we think still that the commercial credit, institutional credit is not very helpful for SME sector, and particularly because the share to SME sector has not been increasing, and there are obviously studies indicate that there are biasness, processual as otherwise, as far as SME sector is concerned. And unless and until you ensure that institutional credit are available for SMEs to take care of shortage of working capital, you will see that the sickness in SMEs will continue. So it's very important that this issue is looked at. Even I think another is that we need to promote trained SMEs the use of ICT. I think the promotion is very critical and important for their growth and survival. And even and I think if they want to gain from use of new technology, productivity gains, that only can be possible with the ICT. I think these are important implications that can be drawn from this particular study. With this, I really thankful to you all. And lastly, I would say that I feel it is honored, to be with you all and to deliver this memorial lecture. I'm especially thankful to Dr. Amarinder Das and Professor Keshav Das. And thank you all, one and all. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you so much, Professor Debaprakash Pradhan, for a very stimulating talk. I'm sure actually all of us have gained quite a lot, particularly the detailed picture of the MSME, because called SME, I think because we often use MSME, okay, and so yeah, we have got a very complete picture on the MSc in India. I think there are already several questions for you, and I'm sure you would like to take a few questions. Is that fine?
Yeah, please.
Okay. So if you can exit the presentation, that will be good. You can end the presentation. Yes.
Yeah,
thank you so much.
Done that. Yeah.
So there is a question from Simanchal Mishra. A nice presentation. The question is that where do we stand when the north, south, and west part has excelled? Odisha has the necessary infrastructure and raw materials. Where do we lack? So I think you can respond to this question first, and then we'll take up other questions.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Raji, for this is a very important question for a state like Odisha. Why do Odisha is lacking as far as rate of formation of SMEs are concerned? Now, if you really look at there are a few factors I will identify, and I can tell you. One important factor is that Odisha, for a long, we could not dynamize our manufacturing sector. The Odisha manufacturing was largely limited to very, very standardized product, low technology product. And the state actually lacked the policy of promoting, let's say, chemicals or pharmaceuticals or transport equipment. We didn't have that policy. So unless and until you have a dynamic manufacturing sector and your state is facilitating that process, I think that is an important aspect that Odisha can look at. How can we promote? Because we all know, I mean, if you look at the even strategic trade theory policy, we all know that state intervention is very, very important to diversify your industrialization policy. If you let the market forces determine it, as Odisha has done, then industry will be confined to the product which is immediately compatible with the factor endowments of that particular state. Okay, so I think one way the Odisha can look at is that look at promoting the technology intensive product in small way. You can start building up, providing all kind of support to enterprises, talking to them and trying to bring and providing all facility to them. So can we dynamize that? That's one aspect. The other aspect I think is important is the entrepreneurship. In Odisha, for quite a long time, Odisha, as we know, I already indicated to you, historically Odisha was a very, very trade promoting state in the past. That is the way we talk about Boita Bandhana, and that story comes into pictures. Okay, we all still remember that. But because of the way your socio-cultural or systems prevailed, after particularly the Bhakti movement and other period, you see that entrepreneurship has not received the kind of the focus that state could do. So I think the promoting entrepreneurship might play an important role. Like give an example. Suppose a state like Gujarat, you can see even taluka level for a particular year, if an entrepreneur has done well, they actually that collector or whatever tahsildar, they invite the person and facilitate before them the society. Okay, he has done well. So that kind of building image of entrepreneurship in the state, I think we need to address that. I mean the social capital, social image of the entrepreneurship need to be promoted, and that can be done through training, partly training, and thus you can government play a role in that. It can be done. The other factor what Odisha is lacking, of course, if you look at, is for a long time Odisha didn't had a road network in this 1980s. You can see if you go to the western side of Odisha, it's really pathetic. I mean, if you travel from my Tillagot to my home, the road was so pathetic I can't explain you. So we had a very long time the deficiency was of road transportation, which was lacking. Okay, so but of course the period right now Odisha is in a very different stage. I mean, if you look at the recent period of time, we have seen that rapid expansion of road taken by both the central government and the state government. That rapid expansion is taken up. So I think it all should contribute to the promotion of new entrepreneurship, particularly from the Odisha state. Then another factor we can see is that I still believe that capital access to formal credit by SMEs is a very important part. And Odisha, I know a number of entrepreneurs, small and medium, they have very great difficulty in accessing institutional credit. It might be true elsewhere also, but in Odisha, the more remote the place from your urban location is, the more difficult for that small and medium enterprise to access the credit. I think credit access is very weak as far as institutional credit is concerned, and I think we have to look into that issues. The other factor, as I can see, is that the higher education. If you look at the Odisha's higher educations, for a long time we had a very few universities, but now the Odisha government has taken a step. Many state colleges were turned into universities, and probably that will play a role. But still now I can see that the schools, particularly in a very remote area, if you go to Balangir or in Kalahandi districts, the good schools are not at all available. Forget about higher education. I think that education and strengthening of India, Odisha's educational system, particularly focusing on job-oriented or skill-oriented, in a sector, I think it may help the state to overcome whatever industrialization bottleneck the state has it. I think the state policy is critical. Of course, I think that's the point I was making. And I'm sure the other scholars may talk about other factors, but these are mostly the immediate factors that I believe are important.
Okay, thank you so much. There is another question from Tuhin Subhadragiri.
Yeah.
With all the important reasons explained by you for the disparities among the states, if you can comment, is it high time to have a national manufacturing policy which is missing in our country right now?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Giri. It goes without saying that the manufacturing must play, and it actually play a very important role in the industrialization process. Now, there are large number of Indian states who have not followed the traditional path of industrializations. I mean, you know, what is the traditional path? Traditional path is that when the share of the agricultural sector, or primary sector comes down in the GDP, that decline share is, taken, care of by increasing share in the industry, and after, some time the services, comes in. But Orissa is quite distinct. I'm referring to Orissa. Here you will see that the declining share of the primary sector is not accounted by the increasing share of the service, industry, but rather services has taken off. So the Odisha actually follow the overall macroeconomic picture of India. Unlike state like Gujarat, if you see the structural path of Gujarat was when the primary sector share has gone down, the large share was taken up by the manufacturing and the industry, and then slowly services taking up. It is a traditional structural change path which people have taken. Now, so every Indian state have their unique developmental paradigm, unique developmental trajectory. Now, when you have a national policy, do that policy takes that into account? Very difficult, I would say, because the distribution of national resources are always determined by who is in the power. And we know, I think, if you look at the work by Professor Keshav Das, I think long time back, on development of vital infrastructure in Odisha, the development of railway network in Odisha and also the port infrastructure were undermined or not allowed to develop because the national policy, Odisha didn't have that power, the political capital. So what I'm saying is, simply having a national manufacturing policy and all one size fitting all the state will be a difficult task to achieve. But the state governments, state policymakers, they must take the lead, and try to bridge the gap in the manufacturing. And they need to be have a specific conscious policy, targeted policies of promoting what kind of farm, what kind of infrastructure, and what kind of sectors they want to promote. I think that dynamism policy is required, and here you have to have that policy only. I think I will see in that way. It's important to have a national objective policy, but when you talk about bridging the gap between the state, the national policy goal and the state goal are different because political regime are different. The allocation of national resources do not happen on the basis of requirement of the state or developmental disparity. That happen because of much larger political process. And the smaller state who do not have power in the center, do not say in the center, hardly get any resources. Okay, so I hope I am making sense to you. Thank you.
In fact, there are so many other questions. I don't know whether you would be able to take them all. Maybe one or two more questions we may take. It's only 5:43. Okay, so somebody is questioning, why do we use this concept SME? Why not MSME? He's saying that no, this is not Indian concept, and this is the East Asian jargon that you are using. And he's saying that okay, would you agree that SME is not a heterogeneous entity? Even with SME segment, there is a huge diversity by size and many other attributes. Can you reflect on what are the emerging patterns within a SME segment, and what are the possible reasons to explain that pattern?
Okay. Thank you. It is a very important thought-provoking questions. See, one about jargon. I used the SMEs term interchangeably with the MSME. I didn't make any differences. I've taken the higher cutoff, whatever identified by the policy, your MSME Act, and accordingly we have used it. So for me, I'm used both the term, interchangeably. So micro are all part of the small farm. That's what I didn't make the analysis by micro, small, and medium. I clubbed them together. That's the point I want to make. And nomenclature. See, why do we have this nomenclature? The nomenclature is very, very important, especially when you do the farm level study, because farms tends to be heterogeneous in size. There will be a small farms, and when you see the development industrialization part of a state, you'll see that the size distribution of the farm, they tends to vary, they tends to change. Okay, so if you really want to see what is your objective, all if you recall our all structuralist school of thought, the argument was that we need to protect our small farms. And because they are small, they are infant, we need to protect. And after protection for some time, they will achieve the scale and capability to fight with the large farms, and also fight and goes beyond the state and the nation and be internationalized. The idea is to calibrate the growth of the farms across the size spectrum. So for me, personally, I still believe if you distribute the farm by different sizes and see how the pattern had changed over a period of time. Is it the large farms who are dominating, whether it is the small farms who are dominating, or the medium farms who are dominating, and how they have grown over a period of time? What happened to their productivity? What happened to their product profile? What happened to the export activities or R&D activities? So this is a very, very important. See, we cannot simply say that there are 1,000 farms, so we need to do every individual farm need to be studied. We cannot do that. What we can do is that we can categorize them into small, medium, and the large, and how many farms are in which category. What is their share in national output, national your product, your employment, what is the level of productivity differences. It actually gives you a thematic approach, thematic approach to analyze large number of heterogeneous farms. So it has its own significance. So classification is important. I mean, that's what I want to tell you, that classification is important. But I believe that the heterogeneity approach to the study of the farm is very important, and one should do that. And there are now, if I may add to you, for a long time, international trade was explained at the level of nations. Difference in the factor proportions or comparative advantage, and all those theories are brought in. But now the international trade is explained by the theory of heterogeneous farms. The different farms have different productivity, and it is the productive farms who perform in international trade. So the heterogeneity approach is quite not only important for the international trade performance, but also performance within the economy, within the state, within the region, within the sector. I think that must, my expectation and my point is that heterogeneity is important.
Okay. I think we'll take this last question from Professor Banikant Mishra. Whether the author has tested whether SDP, state domestic product, affects SME formation, and the endogeneity issues, he's saying, whether you have tested for the endogeneity.
Okay. See, as far as endogeneity is concerned, Professor Mishra is important point Professor Mishra is raising, whether there is an endogeneity between formation of SMEs and the market size or not. Now, if you look at here, what we are looking at, because it is a formation of the farm, okay, it is a formation. What is the rate of formation of new farms happening in that particular current year, and what is the market size of that state? So we theoretically we have not seen that there is a byway causation. I'm not saying that the entry of new farms immediately changing the size of the market size of the state. So I think if the suggestion is that we can certainly look at, we can, let SDP by 1 year. We can elect, and you can do the regression analysis if there is endogeneity issue is there. But theory has not indicated that there is a byway cohesion in immediate way, because the entry of a firm in that particular state may not immediately change the local market size. So that's the reason we didn't have looked at. But if suggestion is there, and we certainly, it's possible, we can certainly look at whether there is endogeneity or not by doing some kind of causality analysis. Let's say Ganjar causality test or something. It can be done, certainly.
Because if endogeneity is there, the regression coefficients will get incorrect. Because since you are running regression, you have to rule out endogeneity. And my hunch is, of course, I will disagree with you. I think there will be some endogeneity. I think SME formation does, in fact, also influence the state domestic product. I'm not analyzing as much. I think Amarendra has done some analysis, Keshav has, they can say, but I think it has some impact. But as you say, you made a very interesting point. The impact could be beyond 1 year. Then so you have to take longer lags, maybe 2-3 years. But if there's any endogeneity, your regression coefficients will get changed.
Thank you.
Your analysis is fantastic. Your analysis is so exhaustive. I just thought that, let me find out his analysis is so good, makes me feel how bad a researcher I am. I said, let me find out one thing he could have done. Otherwise, I feel envious. Such a fantastic presentation. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
I think Professor Pradhan has taken up a lot of questions. I may invite Professor Keshav Das to have a few remarks, because he's the expert in this field. I think we should listen something from him.
No, I think today is JP's day, so I should not get into that. I mean, I think as Professor Vanikantha Mishra already said that it was very exhaustive presentation, and he's a very meticulous researcher, you see, so there is no doubts about those parts. And one thing I must compliment him is that the data that he has sort of managed to, let's say, work on is amazing. I mean, that has to be admitted, and I think that's a very, very significant work he has done, and he has sort of at least he has shown us at least some of the broader sort of, let's say, determinants or drivers, as he says, and sort of from that we may have to, I think, what it leads to is probably to do more intensive micro studies, or at least the micro studies in which I would rather think two things. One is a focus on certain kinds of subsectors, whether certain subsectors have been doing very well because of certain changes in demand, both within the country as well as outside. And the other thing is that what kind of role the subnational state has played in promoting SMEs. So it is not just the firm per se. So it is not just the decision of a say individual firm to do something like to improve its let's say some of the what you call internal features, but I think a lot to do with what the larger role played by the subnational state. I think that is where probably it is leading us to. But the other thing which many people know, and I'm sure JP knows better than me, is that we are actually stopping at 2006-07 in 2021. So, so that is the sector that we are talking, and we are making all comments. And and this is a country where we made so many last year made so many claims in terms of through whatever Atmanirbhar and whatever names we gave it to this, and we do not have database. I mean, this is a sector. In 2006-07 we had the last MSME census, and 2021. So what I'm trying to suggest is maybe the whole world has changed between 2006-07 and 2021 as on today. And whether these are because, and the other thing which may have influenced the SME sort of growth or the entry of the new firms probably relates to what kind of new markets the SMEs are finding because of the deeper integration with the global markets. That is the Indian SMEs in particular in certain sectors like garments or leather footwear, for instance, in pharmaceutical, for instance, certain kinds of machinery, for instance. So we have been playing a major role. That is the SMEs, Indian SMEs playing a major role as suppliers to the global buyers. And I'm sure that must have changed quite a bit in the last 1 decade or so, for which we have so little information. So I didn't want to take time on what JP said. It's a very, very interesting area, and so my best wishes to him. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. And in fact, you can look at the mining sector, because we all used to say Khetraman Sir's every word is a gold or diamond. You're such an outstanding teacher. So even though we don't have gold or diamond mining in India, you tell that Khetraman Sir, gold diamond to nahi mila, jo bhi mining ho raha hai, this is my best reward to the outstanding teaching you have. You used to always say that Khetraman Sir's every word is gold or diamond.
Professor Murthy, do you want to make some remark? Okay.
Good afternoon, everybody. Can I audible?
You can have a quick remark, or you want to have something? Yeah, very quickly you can.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think it's nice that I could listen to the presentation of our old student, Professor Pradhan. As I sit here through the session, I could see lots of very senior professors whom I met at various points of time, and I'm very happy that more than 100 economists from Odisha, mostly from Odisha, have participated in this particular meeting, Odisha Economic Association. And I'm also very happy that quite a few names I could recall and remember as students of University of Hyderabad, HCU. And of course, Professor Pradhan was my student. He was a very extremely meticulous person, and he has risen very well, very high in economics profession. I just wanted to comment one or two quick things. I'm sorry I could join a little late than many of you, and so I might have missed some introductory remarks, etc. Now, I think basically he is, as it has been already pointed out, the data is fairly old. And therefore, unless it is updated to as recent as possible, probably a lot of things can change. And the second thing is basically using a single equation approach, multiple regression analysis, and it's a panel kind of analysis that he has been using. And I'm sure his data set permits him to include lot of dummy variables for somebody was mentioning about results for specific states like Odisha and other states, and also dummies for size. And those he must have included, like large, medium, small, etc. Either by output or some normalization one can use. And those dummies, what we call it as intercept dummies, that he might have already used, but he has not presented them. And it would be interesting to see which state has which kind of sign for a particular overall as well as for particular variables. And another important thing is one can use lots of interaction of these variables. I'm sure that there will be a lot of interaction between the variables which he has used, and I would also like him to do some categorization of demand side and supply side, and maybe what we call a shifter variables. That kind of classification of variables also would be very useful. And of course, my favorite thing would be to do not a multiple regression, single equation, multiple regression. I think let me ask clarification. I think each column is a separate regression. Am I right, Jayaprakash?
Yeah, that's true.
Each column is a separate regression.
Yes.
It's the same data set, you ran those 7-8 regressions and combined them, put them together. And what is I think missing is the what to call the signs you have put with the significance, but then the I think the numerical values of the coefficients also would be useful here, and that is one thing. And interestingly, I think in the beginning, I said I missed some presentation in the beginning. I don't know, while choosing the variables, did you use some economic theory to choose what variable, and more importantly, which variable is expected to have what sign? And I think that is very important. And after doing the regression analysis, we should be able to say which sign is appropriate in quotes, and which is not appropriate, means in terms of sign. For example, the finance variable has altogether a negative sign, which is totally, I think, rather depreciates the entire empirical analysis to a very large extent. And likewise, the FDA variable also some has positive sign and some negative signs, and therefore some of this could be because of multicollinearity. I think Jayaprakash is very much aware that this multicollinearity can play havoc with the signs of the variables, and then makes the analysis somewhat limited. And therefore that is another important thing. The prefixing the expected signs for each of these variables is very important, and discussing the empirical results vis-a-vis those expected signs is important. And of course, my favorite comment would be not a single equation analysis, but it should be a simultaneous system. Many of the variables must have a lot of interdependence, and therefore that has to be properly looked into. And even a small 4 equation, 5 equation, 6 equation system would bring out more consistent and more policy wise useful results, I expect. And of course, I'm in constant touch with Jayaprakash Pradhan. I visited his place of work a number of times, and Keshav Das also I met a number of times. And then I'm very happy to see a lot of Odia alumni from HCU. Thank you very much, and I'm very happy. And
thank you, sir.
I would find out if I can join as a member of the Odisha Economic Association. I can certainly do that, and then participate in future discussions like this. I can see Pavitra Kumar and so many others sitting there patiently and listening to Jayaprakash. Thank you very much, Jayaprakash. And
thank you, sir. Thank you. If you permit me, I will only share with you that the full paper is available along with all the detailed discussion on the variable, the issues related to data, including multicollinearity, how you have handled it. So I suggest, if time permit, I will share with you the full paper with you. And it was available online from the association website. Okay. So, and in the presentation, I just tried to simplify the thing. That is the reason I didn't put the coefficient. It would have been very, very clumsy. So I took a very simplified approach while providing the full paper to the audiences.
Now, coefficients also will help us, because when you are classifying high-tech, medium, and then the low-tech, and consistency as far as the because you have normalized the data, therefore that also you have to, instead of normalizing with the population or skilled labor force, whether if you do it with some other variable, maybe size or something, whether the results will be still similar or that kind of thing also would be very useful. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I just think a teacher is always a teacher. Okay, and so thank you, Professor Murthy, for making this discussion very lively. And no, I think although I am not directly a student of you, no, I know that many students talk about you, and so you made that discussion very lively. Thank you so much. And I think we should end. We have taken so much of time of Professor Pradhan. He has been so generous in spending so much of time with us. And in fact, as Professor Pradhan said, I have already uploaded the full paper in the website of Orissa Economic Association. And so that link is available in the chat window of this meeting. And if Professor Murthy wants to be a member of the Orissa Economic Association, we would be definitely happy. And for which I have also shared the form in the Google chat box. So you can just click on that form, and so all the instruction and everything is mentioned in that form. It's a one-page form. So, and we would be definitely happy to have you as a member in the association. So I think with this, I thank Professor Jayaprakash Pradhan for a very exhaustive analysis and a very thorough presentation. Because as I told you in the beginning that when actually I was doing PhD, we used to see the publications coming up very regularly. And also people talk about him very high, that he's a very serious researcher, and I think today we all have seen that here. So and that's why we feel proud actually to have you here. And I think this is a great tribute to Professor K.M. Patnaik. Because although I was not a student of Professor K.M. Patnaik, but then I have heard actually quite a lot about him. So how serious teacher he was, and then his contribution to the making of the association also is really great. So I think so with such a enlightening lecture by Professor Pradhan, I think we are definitely making a great tribute to Professor K.M. Patnaik. I think his son is present with us. I think he would also agree with us that this is the best way to show respect to a former professor and who has made this association. So I think with this I would conclude, and I again thank all the senior professors like Professor Keshav Das, Professor Vanikant Mishra, Professor K.N. Murthy, and also my president, Professor S.N. Tripathi, who is not keeping well. And in spite of that, although he told me in the beginning that I will sit only for 5 minutes, but I saw that he sat through the entire presentation. So that means you made basically this. And see, today our house was full. In fact, I could not accommodate so many other people. I was getting so many requests. I have got so many emails also. That, sir, please admit me, but I didn't have the option to admit them. Okay, so it shows that how big hit our lecture has been. Okay, so again, for the information, this lecture will be available on the YouTube channel of the Orissa Economic Association. And so with this, we shall conclude. Thank you so much. Thank you very much.
I must express thanks all of you for your
Congratulations.
very active participation. Professor Vanikant Mishra, Keshav Das, Professor Murthy all participated in their own way and suggested many things for the enrichment of the work. And I hope this research should continue in the context of this pandemic situation, how we can revive the SME sector. Because this is the empirical study which we have made on the basis of data that we have accumulated, and many things have been brought to light, but further research is necessary. And I hope with your cooperation, Orissa Economic Association will reach a new height in coming years. And I thank all of you for your presence, hearing and presence. I thank you all. And with this, I think this memorial lecture event is over. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Sir. Thank you.
And namaste
सभी
to all.
लोगों को मेरा प्रणाम. Thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations, Jayaprakash. Congratulations.
Thank you.